Hello, this is Karen Cook, and I'm here to welcome you to the Home Modification Specialist Aim Big meeting with Linda Struckmeyer. She's going to be presenting tonight on the HEAP R home assessment for people with dementia. So, welcome and thank you for coming. Here's Linda.
And really needing more information to guide caregivers and people with dementia for aging in place. And their home modification needs tend to be different than a lot of other ones because they don't have some of the physical things that we normally associate with needing for accessibility. And so as part of one of my classes, I developed or found this tool that Laura Gitlin had developed called the Home Environmental Assessment Protocol. And I really liked it, but it was 27 pages and 192 items, so it wasn't very practical to use for a home care therapist. So I revised the tool, and then over time it became my dissertation to test the psychometrics of it and to start training some therapists to use it to get some feedback on it. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
I can hear you.
Great. Just tell me to slow down or if you need me to. So the background is, as many of you probably already know, most older adults want to age in place, as probably most of us do. And at this point, there's 5.3 million Americans with Alzheimer's disease, plus other kinds of dementia in addition to that, too, would make the number even higher. And that's expected to really triple, or almost triple, in the next years. And some of the research shows that the desire to keep the loved one with Alzheimer's disease at home is the #1 caregivers list for providing in-home care. And caregivers also note that they want more knowledge, more training, and more resources about home modifications. So that's kind of some background that really fits for all of us, no matter what area of home modifications, that caregivers just want more information. So what the HEAP R is, which is a short abbreviation for the Home Environmental Assessment Protocol, and the R is for revision, is an assessment of the home environment. Looks a little bit different than what some of you may think of in terms of home mods, because it's not going to measure the width of doorways or the height of the toilet. It's really going to look at safety, participation, any adaptations that have been made, visual cues, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the visual cues domain and ask for some opinions about that later on. And it also looks at clutter, and then it also looks at comfort. And comfort is like that little nest area that a lot of our older adults have by their recliner or their favorite chair, where they have maybe their telephone and their magazine and their newspaper. It also has to do with how the lighting is in their little nest area, and then it also looks at comfort, like around the bed area too, and in their nightstand area. So this is the most recent version of what my HEAP R looks like. So you can see how it just starts out with some general information about the client, and then starts at the entrance and looks just yes or no, are there hazards, are there adaptations, are there visual cues, and what's the level of clutter. And then goes into the living room, the kitchen, the eating area, the stairs, the hallway, the bedroom. Can you see my cursor moving?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you can kind of see where I'm at. And then a little bit more detail on the bathroom. And then I put a space for another room, because frequently there's another room where the person with dementia spends a lot of time. I'm here in Florida, so a lot of people here have like lanais or you know, screened-in porch areas where that person with dementia might spend a lot of time. It could be a workroom if the person has some kind of office area or a workshop in the garage that they like to go to, or really, and it could even be the laundry room if that's a room that somebody spends a lot of time in. So it could be really any room. And then it's scored by just adding up the total numbers in the yes column, the total numbers in the no column for and this is the hazards column. And then over here where this is adaptations, the same thing, the total yes number for the number of adaptations, yeses for the amount of rooms that have visual cues, and then clutter can be scored a little bit differently with 1 for somewhat cluttered and 2 for very cluttered. And as some of you may know, clutter is kind of a different kind of hard thing to measure because we all have different perceptions of what we consider clutter. I have a few things on my counter and I don't consider that clutter. My sister would consider that clutter. And some clutter can actually help with participation. So having some visual cues and things out on the counter can sometimes help cue that person with dementia into what they need to do. So clutter isn't necessarily a bad thing at the somewhat cluttered level. And then just a place here to look at what assistive devices the person is using. Originally, my tool had fire safety here, and as I did some studying on it and content validity, the experts who reviewed my tool said it should be a little bit more specific and really look at smoke detectors. And I probably wouldn't hurt to add carbon monoxide detectors here too if there's something with gas in the home. And then you see comfort is measured differently down here, just looking at the comfort in the bedroom and at the living room. And then I have, different from the original tool, places to really talk and collaborate with the caregiver and the person with dementia when they're able to participate in this, which is ideal. To look at what are some of the barriers that they're concerned about. And what are some of the supports and things that they've already identified that have been helpful to them? And what do they think some of their unmet needs are? And as the therapist or evaluator, we can also add to that. And then some prioritized recommendations. And you know, I actually tuned into this when Susie Stark presented. She has some good research out there that shows that there's better follow-through when it's done in collaboration, but also when the person who's making home modifications has a couple of different suggestions. So rather than telling them, you know, put a grab bar on the wall, giving them 2 or 3 different choices. You know, you could put a grab bar on the wall, or you could get one of those adjustable ones you put on the tub, giving them a couple of different suggestions. So the prioritized recommendations can come from that list and can include more than one thing. So then when I did taking this tool forward to see if it would really withstand being an evidence-based tool, because I know when I was in home care, a lot of us just kind of make up our own assessments to meet our needs, so they have great, what we would call clinical utility, but whether they really are valid instruments or reliable can be left up to question without really testing the psychometrics of the tool. So to look at the content validity, I did a literature review and I contacted 9 people who had publications or presentations in home modifications. So I'm not sure if any of you that are listening were actually part of this study at some point or another. But I had 7 people respond to that part of my study. And then I did the reliability, and I had 10 home videos, and again, I actually recruited through this group, so some of you might have been participants in this part of the study. I had 10 videos of homes throughout different places in the country, and therapists watched those videos and then scored the tool that you saw based on the videos. And then about 2 weeks later, they did that again to see if it had test-retest reliability. And then I also looked at the concurrent validity, which that was just comparing my tool to the original tool. So I went into 21 homes of people with dementia and their caregivers. Some were in Texas and some were in Florida. And I administered both of the assessment tools and then compared with statistical analysis the results that I got on each of them to see if they were consistent. And then I'm really interested in occupational adaptation theory, and so I just looked at some of the theoretical relevance and how caregivers felt in terms of their satisfaction and efficiency and effectiveness of the whole assessment process and use of the tool. So for my content validity study, a content validity index of 1 means that everybody agreed. So in terms of the domain of hazards, they all thought that that was an important domain. In terms of adaptations, there was one person who didn't necessarily think that needed to be included. Visual cues, everybody agreed, and as you can see, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to go that fast. They could, overall tool had a 0.86 content validity index, which was really good. And then to figure out on a total content validity index, if I took this 5 domains and then the assistive devices and fire safety and got the mean of our average of that, I got 0.98. So again, good content validity for the tool. So that was really pleasing to see. Then the reliability, the actual procedures of how I tested it, where I did some trainings, and you'll get to see that training video in just a little bit, and then asked participants who watched the training video to score 3 home environment videos, and they took a competency quiz, which I'll give you all a chance to take, but we'll do it together. And then they actually went in and did the study and watched the videos and scored. They couldn't score comfort because you really need the person and need to be there to see comfort, so they just looked at hazards, adaptations, visual cues, and clutter, and then did that again. I ended up having 24 therapists participate. The results of my inter-rater reliability, so that means for like home 1, all 24 therapists scored home 1, and did they agree in terms of how they scored it? And because clutter is not yes and no, it's scored with different numbers, it was analyzed separately. So this is pretty low. I really did not get a good reliability. Perfect would be 1. Pretty decent good reliability would be at least 0.6, 0.7, somewhere in there. So you can see overall my reliability was not great. Ended up only analyzed 22 of the 24 therapists because I had a lot of not applicable responses, and we ended up having to throw out those 2 therapists on each of those. And clutter, as we kind of expected, did not have good reliability. We all have different perceptions of what clutter is. Therapists went in, though, and re-scored the test 2 weeks later. They did do much better reliability for test-retest. And really, in terms of home modifications, it's not all that, you know, one therapist would need to do the test and then a different therapist would need to do the test. So the inter-rater reliability, we could make some pros and cons as to how necessary that is for a home modifications assessment. But for the test-retest, if we want to look at something possibly being an outcomes measure later, if one therapist scores it, we want them to be able to get pretty much the same score the next time they do it. Now, in home mods, if we go into a home a second time, it's not going to be the same. So in order to do test-retest, I had to use the videos because if we had them pick up the throw rug, then that hazard would be gone the next time we went in. So it's not realistic to do test-retest actually in the home. But again, a 1 on here would be perfect. So 0.8 is really good for hazards and adaptations. Visual cues was a lot lower. I think we interpret those different. I'll be interested in your opinion on that later, because I've had some feedback saying that visual cues are adaptations, and maybe we should just leave out the visual cues domain and have people include those in adaptations. And then clutter, not too bad, but even therapists among themselves rated it different the second time they looked at clutter.
Hey, can I interrupt?
So then on the last
for a second, Linda? If you're on the phone, if you could mute your phone so that way it doesn't cause feedback, that would be wonderful. So, sorry, go ahead, Linda. You're getting a little
Oh,
feedback.
that's fine. So the concurrent validity, that's when I went in and administered both tools to the same at the same home, to the same caregiver and person with dementia unit. And I recruited those people through adult day programs. So these aren't maybe typically the people that we'd get for home care, but these are people who were involved already in some sort of support group and had some kind of the caregivers were already seeking information about dealing with the whole dementia or Alzheimer's disease process because they were coming to these support groups. So for the concurrent validity, again, with one being perfect in terms of how the two tools matched up, comparing my tool to the original version, really pretty good for hazards and adaptations again, and pretty good for clutter too, as well as comfort. Now I did both of the assessment tools, so we'd expect it to be a little higher in these areas than if we had comparing different therapists. But it is interesting that even though I did it, the visual cues domain didn't match up for the two tools the way the original tool asked about visual cues and the way I asked about visual cues in my tool. So then the last part of my study was 2 weeks later. We called the caregivers and we asked them about their relative mastery and about what they thought about the whole process, and really got some interesting data from that. Overall, 19 of the 21 participants whose homes I went into answered the questions from the phone call. They thought the whole process was efficient, and they thought it was effective, so 4 would be the perfect score on here. They were all satisfied. The caregiver was satisfied with the process. This is the satisfaction of the person with dementia, the care recipient. And 9 of the caregivers said, well, I don't really know. I couldn't tell if they were satisfied or not. So that's why I only have 10 responses there. And it was lower because they frequently said, well, I just really don't know if the person, my loved one, was engaged in the process. Some of them, they very much were so. And then the 2 open-ended questions that I asked, one was, what changes to the home environment have you made since the evaluation? And of these 19 participants, 5 reported that they had not made any changes. 6 reported that they had plans to make changes, and quite a few of them talked about what changes they had made, whether it was picking up rugs. One of them had gone to the store and purchased grab bars, but was still wanting some feedback on how to get them installed. I didn't actually make these follow-up phone calls. Somebody else did who has experience in home modifications, and she was able to answer caregiver questions. So really kind of showed the importance of having a follow-up call or some kind of follow-up appointment. And that was one of the other things on the last question, open-ended question was, are there anything else you'd like to share about the home assessment process that you participated in? And 3 of them stated that they really would have liked more information or liked a follow-up visit. One participant actually said, I wish I had known about this opportunity earlier in the dementia process. Some of my caregiving things would have been a lot easier had I known some of what I learned in the whole home modifications assessment process. So I was able to answer my research questions to show that this tool does have great validity. Validity was strong except for visual cues, but the innovator reliability was not adequate. You'll get to see one of the videos. Some of the videos were really poor quality. My 22-year-old son did one of his apartment. One of the videos was very dark. Another one that was done up north was very shaky. Some of them were really pretty good. But with the video, you can't always see everything that you might see in the home. Plus, unless you went back and looked at it again a second time or the participant went slower on it, and change the speed on the video, they might not have caught some of the hazards or adaptations or visual cues. I used a survey method of scoring. So rather than giving my participants a hard copy of the form like you saw earlier in the slides, they were on an online survey that collected the data. So they had to do that either back and forth as they were watching the video or after they've watched the video. So if they skipped a question or if they signed out and went back in later, I ended up with a lot of missing data. Well, not a lot, but enough that it could have affected the results. Also, I trained about a little more than half of my participants in person, but then the rest of them, in order to get my numbers I needed, I trained online. And so they didn't have the benefit of listening to question and answers that might have helped them in this process. And then the fact that I did both of the concurrent validity when I administered both of the tools, my own bias might have come through. So some limitations to my study. Some significance of this tool is that AOTA has identified home assessment as a critical area for research, and occupational therapy literature has very little on home modifications assessment for persons with dementia. There's actually only 2 other assessments besides the HEAP that I could find that were developed specifically for people with dementia. One was in nursing and the other is by an OT, but it specifically looked just at home safety of persons with dementia and didn't look at a little bit bigger picture. And we really, if we want to be evidence-based therapists, really need some reliable and valid tools to guide our recommendations. And there's been some good other research out there that shorter versions of the same tool really might have more clinical utility. And that's one of the things I want to look at going forward, is to have therapists actually start using this tool and be able to do some kind of survey or further research on, is it really helpful? What would make it work in a person's home, and what would need to be changed? Along with that, I think if I make a manual for the tool, that will help. If I have a fillable form, so I'm wanting to try and learn how to make my form fillable so we can put it on our laptops or our tablets that we take into a home and just click the little buttons where it says yes or no. I think actually doing the inter-rater reliability study in the home might help with the inter-rater reliability. That gets to be quite cost expensive because you have to send 2 therapists or 2 people into the home at the same time, paying both of them, travel time, cost, the increased caregiver burden of having more people in the house, looking at it, asking questions. So some difficulties with doing research in the home. And I think I would like to look at, does this tool that I made really, could it serve as an outcomes measure? So if we went into a person's home with dementia and did this, and then went back 6 weeks later, could we show that there's less hazards and more adaptations and more visual cues, and their comfort has improved, or that clutter has changed? So I think there's some things that we can do with this tool. Any questions so far? This is a little 11-minute video that shows how to score the tool. Anybody have any questions so far? Can you all hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video. Let me know if you can't hear it when it's up. It's actually a YouTube, so.
Is there volume with this, Linda?
Yeah, can you hear it? You can't hear it?
I can't hear the volume. I don't know if anyone else can.
No.
No.
No. can't hear it.
Let's see if I can turn it up. Can anybody hear it yet?
No.
No. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn the volume off on my end, and then I will talk as it goes through.
Oh, perfect.
So the original tool is published in this book that's by AOTA, or published through the American Occupational Therapy Association. And this compares the two tools, showing that they both have the 5 dimensions, the clutter, hazards, visual cues, and comfort. The HEAP just has the caregiver walk through it, whereas I have more of a co-occupation focus in my tool and really feel the importance of the person with dementia walking through the home as well. An example of that is when I administered it once, the person with dementia grabbed a 2x4 that was rusting along the wall of the garage, and had they not been there, I might not have picked up on that as a safety hazard, that they were going to use that as their banister. We really incorporate the new tool. Okay, I already showed you this in the other the video. You can see here how fire safety is now the smoke detector, so it's been changed a little bit. The comment sections now are a little bit clearer in the newer version that run through, and that was changed after the content validity study. So you can see the top has the client general information with housing type. So that would be like, is it a 2-story? Is it a ranch? Is it an apartment? Anything else you felt like you wanted to add about the housing? It might be senior housing. The 5 dimensions. Hazards would include things that might be tripping and falling hazards, or electrical hazards, or dangerous items like maybe knives sitting out, or medication sitting out on the counter. Adaptations could be any kind of technology, home modifications. To really get a good feel for adaptations, you almost have to ask the caregiver, though. So in my research, I wasn't able to ask the caregiver. It was just a video. I was on the concurrent validity, but on the reliability, when therapists watched the video, they didn't have that opportunity to see a person with dementia or to ask a caregiver, had they made any changes, had they rearranged any furniture, what else have they already done. So unless it was something obvious like a grab bar, it didn't show up in my videos. Talked a little bit about visual cues. Visual cues for people with dementia might be like a sign on the bathroom door that says bathroom. Like if you ever saw the movie Still Alice, when she couldn't make it to the bathroom in time, or couldn't find the right door to go into the bathroom, if one of those doors had said bathroom, she might have been able to find the bathroom versus having an accident. Visual cues might be also leaving out a list of things to do for the person with dementia. Clutter or rating is somewhat cluttered or very cluttered. And then I explained comfort a little, so hopefully this video will move on to the next slide soon. I'm sorry that the volume doesn't work. So you can see the scoring here. For these 3 domains, it's just yes, there are hazards, no, there are not, or it's not applicable. So not applicable really isn't going to fit in terms of some of these, but like if there's no steps, where there's a line that says steps, it would be not applicable on steps. Probably about one of the few times they need to use not applicable. And we're not actually counting the number of hazards in each room, but just in the little items on the checklist. And then at the very end, counting the total number of hazards found in the house. So here you can see a little bit more detail on rating clutter. So less than 20% of a surface area covered would be not cluttered. Somewhat cluttered would be about 20 to 80%, and very cluttered would be more than 80% of the surface area covered. So I'm sure you've been in some of those homes where there's that much clutter on the counters and you can see very little counter space. And I'll be interested as we get done and just have a discussion to find out what you know, if you all evaluate clutter and how you deal with that. I should move on pretty soon to the next slide. So in the entrance, it looks at first the steps, and then it looks at locks, because for people with dementia, it's not just locks aren't just a safety issue in terms of robbery, but they're a safety issue in terms of wandering. So is there a lock on the door that's maybe up high, like a child safety lock, that the person with dementia, so they're not going to wander out at night? Or is there a little, like a bell, so when the door opens, it cues the caregiver that the person with dementia might be going outside? Looking at flooring and transitions, also loose rugs. Is there transition that's over 1 inch? So here you actually see it on the tool and how it would be marked there. Lighting is considered a hazard when there's like a broken bulb or a missing light bulb or one that doesn't work. And then I have spaces for other in every room, because there might be something else. I want to be very client-centered and give the therapist or whoever the evaluator is the opportunity to identify something else in that room that they want to address. So in the living room, the eating area, the bedroom, again, it looks at the same things: flooring and transitions, lighting, and then it also looks at furniture. So this was interesting because when I started doing this, and I'll show you the video of my mom's home, I didn't realize her chair was broken. So my videos don't show that it's broken, but when I actually had her sit in it, and that I was able to find out that the back of it was broken, and that was a potential hazard. So it just shows that much more the importance of having, my mother doesn't have dementia. She just happened to be one of my participants, though, for the videos. So you can see how that's marked again on here, where it's just simple boxes. That's why I think if this were as a mobile app or a fillable form, it would be really easy to score and just touch the areas where you want to note yes or no, and then be able to type in other spaces. So the kitchen also includes appliances, to look if there's any hazards in appliances, things that are potentially dangerous that could be sitting out for the person with dementia. A lot of, I saw several people that I went into their homes and their kitchen appliances, the knobs were taken off of the stove and kept like in a basket up on top of the refrigerator where the person with dementia couldn't find them. So they weren't messing with the stove. The bathroom looks at quite a few more things. I think it's important to look at the commode and the sink and the shower or tub. And then other rooms, and in my actual study, the other rooms weren't looked at, but in real life, we would look at the stairs and the hallways and any other rooms that are being used. In some parts of the country, it would be a basement maybe as well. And we didn't do the comfort section in my study, but I think I told you a little bit about that already. So I'm going to, excuse me, go back to the slideshow here. Oops. To the PowerPoint. So now that we've had the little training video, and you all can chime in and go through the competency exam. So potential hazards include sharp objects that are visible in the room. You think that's true or false?
True.
Mm-hmm. Good. And, oops, I'm sorry. A phone number posted by the phone or on the refrigerator is an example of which domain?
Visual cues.
Visual
Mm-hmm.
cues.
Good. So lighting, considering that as a hazard, would include which of the following? Glare, missing bulbs, missing lampshades, or all of the above?
All of the above.
All the above.
Mm-hmm. And it can include even more things than that, because a very dark area could be a hazard as well, where there wasn't good lighting. A throw rug or loose flooring is considered clutter, a potential hazard, or not relevant to this assessment.
Hazard.
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 Electrical cords in the walkway should be marked under which domain? Clutter, visual cues, hazards, or adaptations?
Yes.
Hazards, good. A comfort height toilet is an adaptation, a visual cue, or a hazard?
Adaptation.
Adaptation, good. Steps without a handrail are considered a hazard, true or false?
True.
And so this was kind of interesting when therapists did this, because as OTs we say, well, it depends. So maybe it's not a hazard for somebody with really good balance. So in the videos for we scored my tool for the for my dissertation, it was kind of hard to tell. But I think overall we would agree that a handrail is a good thing to have and can prevent a hazard. So is a potential hazard. A rating of not clutter may include a few common items on the counter. True or false?
True.
True. Crowded furniture with narrow walkways is considered an adaptation, a visual cue, or clutter.
Clutter.
Clutter. And the number of hazards should be counted and entered in each individual room. True or false? So that one is actually false, because we're going to mark yes or no for hazards like under steps and the transitions, but we don't have to count like that we see, you know, maybe look around the room and we're not necessarily counting, oh, there's a hazard here and a hazard there, and we identify 10 hazards in the room. So you can just check yes or no on the tool, and then in the comments section, write what other hazards might be concerns that you want to address, but you don't have to count each potential hazard in the room. So that's kind of helped to make the tool a little bit more user-friendly too. And I don't think the reliability would be very, very good if all of us, 20 people listening here, went into a room and looked around and counted what we thought were the number of potential hazards. But if we key into those specific areas, we can say yes or no, we think there's a hazard. So I want to give you some practice to actually score the tool. I'll show you. I don't think we actually got the tool sent out, though, did we, as an attachment with the email?
No, we didn't. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I just have the PowerPoint, but I should check in.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to switch because there's a video I like better than the one I put in the PowerPoint that I thought about since I've started doing this. So I'm going to go here to a different video, and we can just talk about it as we watch through it, about how we would score it. So this is a home of somebody in their 80s, and we can see there's handrails. And if you see something you would consider a hazard, go ahead and just, kind of feel free to speak up and say, oh, I see a hazard there, or, I see an adaptation here, or whatever it is, that you see that you think you might mark yes or no on the tool.
Yeah, that rug can be a hazard.
Yeah.
The two handrails look like that could be an adaptation if they added it.
Yes.
Make it easier, yeah.
And you're exactly right. Those handrails were added as an adaptation.
So those tables might be limiting the door opening all the way.
Yeah, very much so.
Some more rugs.
Yeah. That's just a pocket door. So when the pocket door is closed, it's pretty good out there. You see lots of stuff laying around there, don't you? Broken chest.
Was that vacuum handle extending out into the room?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, hard to tell.
Yeah, and it could easily fall.
Right.
And I'm not sure why my video is stopping here. Oh. Let me see if I can get this back to where it was. Well, it doesn't seem to want to be cooperating with me, so I'm going to go on, not put you through having to just watch a video that isn't cooperating here. It gives you an idea on how we scored the tool, though, a little bit for my actual study with seeing the video. And if I were going to train new therapist or therapist on how to use the tool, using the video gives us some opportunities to at least talk through how to use the tool and what to look for, and how to make it more reliable and valid by having some kind of standardized method for administering the assessment tool. So these are just some of my references. If any of you get the occupational therapy, the AJOT, the journal, American Journal of Occupational Therapy, I did have a scoping review in that was published in the January edition. Because I just defended my dissertation last month, I'm working on writing up this article of it. So you're actually my first presentation, other than my defense, of the results of it. And I'll be presenting it at the Florida OT conference, and then hopefully at it'll be hopefully showing up in the September 2017 AJAT, because that's going to be specifically related to Alzheimer's disease and dementias. So that was what I had in terms of my presentation for tonight. Just want to see, do you have any feedback or questions, comments? Would like to discuss the visual cues a little bit, and if you think that's an important domain that needs to be looked at separately from adaptations, I'd like some feedback on that.
I would love to see, I don't know about anyone else, but I would love to see one of those videos and have you kind of talk through the evaluation as we watch the video, as far as, you know, your scoring and what you're seeing as it applies to dementia and home mods. Just to,
Let me see
if you're willing to do that.
if I can get another one to come up here. While I'm looking for that, anybody else?
Well, I think the visual cues could definitely be in the adaptations, and I don't think you'd lose anything.
Mm-hmm.
When you're scoring clutter, are you scoring it on the floor and on the countertops? It seemed like it had referenced just the countertop.
Yes. So on the actual tool, can you see my screen here where it says floor and counters for kitchen?
Yes.
So in a lot of places, so in a lot of places, just I don't specify it, but in the kitchen and in the bathroom were two places where it did clarify which place the clutter is.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Let's see, that was my. Let's see if I can get this link to work, and then I can come up with one of the homes. So I actually, for my survey, had all the homes in a YouTube playlist. So I think we might be able to get one of these. Trying to figure out which home would be the best one to show you here. And I can't tell from. Okay. So this home, you saw, I don't know if you saw the handrails. Well, you can see kind of them in the reflection a little bit. And then I show the lighting. So you'll be able to see a hazard right here.
So if you're using your evaluation tool, I mean, what are you looking at for each one? I know you can't probably show both on your screen, but can you kind of go over what you're going through as
So in the entrance there, we would show, I might be able to pause this and then go back to the tool. Let's see if I can do this. And we go back to the tool and look at the entrance. So the steps, there was a handrail. So under other, I might want to put a note or comments here that there is a handrail. And I'd probably mark that there was no hazard on the steps because of the handrail. I showed the locks, and based on the video, I would say it was not a hazard. But if I actually had the person with dementia with me and the caregiver told me they wandered and would get out at night, then I might mark locks as a hazard because there's nothing to keep them from getting out on their own at night. Flooring and transitions, what would you all mark there for hazards?
The rugs.
Yeah, so, I think we've all probably put yes there. Lighting, I showed the real nice light that worked. There was a light on the inside and the outside of the entrance. And then under adaptations, yes would be for the handrails. There was no adaptations for the locks. Didn't see any adaptations for the flooring. Again, it's easier to score when you have the person there and can ask them, have you made any changes?
I
would hope.
I have a question real quick. My mom has Parkinson's, so I've been learning about Parkinson's. And I know for people with Parkinson's, if there's a transition and it's well demarcated, they're better able to walk across it. Is there any transitions? I mean, you don't want something that someone's going to trip over, but if someone has dementia, is there anything for transitions that you should look for or not look for?
There isn't anything in the literature on that. Just as a home care therapist, typically if there's any kind of transition that's more than an inch, I would usually take some bright orange or bright yellow duct tape and put it on there to help make a visual cue.
Okay, that makes sense.
To see that there was an adaptation there.
Except
for lighting here. Oh, go on.
What about the issue about the color contrasts? Feeling like they're going to step into a hole or, the dark space.
Yeah, and again, that's why ideally having the person with dementia and the caregiver are there, because as therapists, these are all questions we would ask. And if that was a specific concern, then we would mark it as a hazard or note it in comments.
Yep.
Under lighting and adaptation that we wouldn't be able to see in a video, what we would be able to ask about was if there was a motion sensor. So that's sometimes an adaptation that can be really good for lighting. You don't have to remember to turn the light on. It's going to come on automatically.
And then for visual
So go
cues,
see if I...
what would the visual cues
Mhm.
be? I'm not real clear on those.
So a visual cue at the entrance might just be something with a name, or it might be on the inside of a door at the entrance. It might be a note that says, remember to take your cell phone when you leave.
Okay.
So I have a gentleman at my church who's got early stages dementia and still lives alone, and his daughter has put visual cues up in his house that says, Dad, go get your cell phone before you walk out the door. Or a checklist. Do you have your keys? Did you turn off the lights? Did you turn off the stove? So sometimes people will put them on the door going out. So it is kind of the entrance. It's also the exit. In terms of the home, there aren't really too many visual cues that are put in an entrance safety-wise. If it's an apartment, though, like a senior citizen housing apartment, I do have a lot of, and I did do one of those homes. The people had like a little table with a wreath on it, and because every door looks in the hallway looks the same, except for the number. So if they couldn't remember which number their apartment was, they might have the sign with their name on it that says, this is, Susie's apartment, or this is Mr. Smith's apartment. So that could be a visual cue if their home is in a hallway where every door looks the same. Does that clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, that helps out a lot for me.
So we'll go back and look at this house again a little bit. Can you see all the glare with lighting in this house?
Notice that.
So that's a potential hazard. There's just a lot of glare in this home. And for some people with dementia, they can almost maybe feel like they're stepping on something, like something's in the way when you see all this glare coming off of the hardwood. And then I want you to note the bathroom door here. I think we're going to see in a minute. Oh, we're just going to see the other side of this door. So there's no transition there because everything's the same. Familiar pictures, the little comfort area next to the bed. Had a clock. This is just a wipe-off chalk board sign that you can get at Hobby Lobby or Michael's to show that, it's a bathroom. I actually, after I was working on this project, I have in my kitchen, there's a door that goes to the laundry room, but when it's closed and we had company, people would open that door thinking it was the bathroom or knock on it. And so I bought one of those signs that said laundry and put it on the door to the laundry room as a visual cue. You see a nightlight in the bathroom there. That's just one you can push with your hand. So that would be an adaptation for lighting. See a tub bench, a shower chair there.
Is that a jacuzzi tub?
No, it's just a garden tub.
Okay.
And here, if we evaluated it, we would want to know, too, what does the person with dementia use? Are they using the shower or are they using the tub? And in this case, they used the shower, but they kept the bench in the tub and just moved it into the shower when the person with dementia was in it. And the caregiver took care of moving things back and forth.
Linda,
Uh-huh.
it looks like there's some questions that people have been asking in the chat area. That it might be
Okay.
good to go back to.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and stop this then. I think you probably hopefully have a good enough idea from the video.
I think it's a great start, that's for sure.
Good. Let's see if I can. Okay, good. I guess I couldn't see the chat area while I was sharing my screen. Is this measure available for use? Yes and no. If you want to email me, I'll be glad to share it with you. And I don't want it to be something that I'm going to sell. I don't plan to use this as a tool that I'm going to make money for, because I think tools that we tend to use in therapy are those that we can access free. Like the FIM, the Functional Independence Measure for ADLs, or the MMSE for the Mini Mental Status Exam. Some of the tools that we can access for free that have reliability and validity tend to be the ones we use. So I'm not going to try and like save it to be copyrighted and make money off of it, but it's not in its final version yet because I'm still working on testing it. But I think it has enough reliability and validity already to say that it is an evidence-based tool. So I'll be glad to share it with anybody who's interested in using it.
And I can send out an email tomorrow with that tool on there. I'll see. I don't know if I have that in my email. The only thing I saw was the PowerPoint.
Okay, I thought I sent another one with attachments, but I might not have.
Yeah.
And I did make, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Westmead. It's a home falls assessment. It has like a one-page quick start guide, and so after my content validity study, I made a one-page kind of like an easy mini manual that just has a definition of each of the domains and talks a little bit about how to score them, kind of as a refresher. So if you know somebody's used it, hasn't used it for a couple months, and then all of a sudden you get a patient with dementia and you want a refresher, you can just kind of look at that one-page tool. So I can send that with it as well.
Linda,
yeah.
After you do the assessment, or the OT does the assessment you're talking about, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Who will be doing all the recommendations?
It really could be anybody. Ideally, some of them initially would happen at the time of the evaluation. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to go through the home and do that with the caregiver. So from a home health care perspective, the evaluation might be done the first visit as part of the whole big OT evaluation, and then the recommendations, the collaboration, some of those pieces might happen as part of the intervention as the home care goes along. Mm-hmm. I guess there's a lot of different models that could be used, though. I'm more familiar with doing Medicare Part A billing, but I could see it being used even as, you know, those of you who are getting a business started and you have somebody with dementia, you know, that you could do the home assessment with them and I guess how much, you know, they want to pay for in terms of times to come back and follow up on it and the recommendations and getting them implemented.
The importance seems to be having somebody that, if renovations are necessary, to have somebody that has a good handle on that too.
Right. And from my perspective, but having been mostly a home care therapist that's very interested in home modifications, if I needed somebody that needed a bathroom remodel or, you know, a couple rooms in the house remodeled, some more accessibility, I would want to incorporate and get in touch with somebody who was CAP certified or has some more additional training in making those higher end, more expensive modifications.
Right.
So yep. This isn't geared necessarily towards being used by a, you know, in isolation of other people that we would refer to. I mean, and that's just general OT ethics. Once things reach outside of our comfort level and our area of expertise. Let's see, I see a question here about other neurological conditions. And specifically, I mean, I've worked in home care with every kind, but this tool was developed specifically for people with dementia. As far as for people living alone, haven't had good success with carryover for home modifications for people with dementia that are living alone. Really almost have to get a caregiver involved in the evaluation process for any changes to happen. And that wasn't even for just my older patients with dementia.
Hey, Linda, this is Mahir. I have a couple of questions for you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you for sharing the information. I guess a lot of the information that we heard today is something that can be applicable to many of the clients that we see on regular basis.
Yes.
I was wondering as well, besides everything that you shared, when I go and realize that I have a client that I know that their memory is not going to be as dependable, whether they have dementia or Alzheimer's, I go through the house and I'm thinking, what does the environment is able to do without relying on them? So we start looking at home automation. We're looking at, blinds that can be remotely maybe closed, and garage doors, even thermostats. We look at if we need to install anti-scald valves in the bathroom, and toilets that will be flushed automatically using a sensor. We're looking at lifelines, maybe ID bracelets for them, falls sensors, medication management, and even indoor cameras. Are these things that you have included in the assessment?
Those things would all fall under adaptations.
Right.
In terms of identifying if they're already there. In terms of actually including those as recommendations, the recommendations section at the end of the tool is very open to collaboration, to identifying with the person with dementia and the caregiver what the issues are, and it's really wide open. In home care, I didn't see a lot of people who were really willing to try some of that technology or have the financial resources to do that. But I think for a family that had the financial resources to do that, a lot of those adaptations would definitely be things we would want to think about in terms of the recommendations.
So are you saying that for people who have limited resources, we pretty much will end up going to the default list of modifications with the thorax and the grab bars and that kind of stuff? Am I understanding you right?
To some extent, I don't think we should discount offering those and sharing those as options, because we never know. I don't want to assume that there aren't resources that I don't know about.
Yeah.
So I think things definitely worth bringing up as we discuss with caregivers, then do that collaborative piece after the actual home walkthrough, and talk about like the option of the flushable toilet that's just gonna, like they have at the mall, that's gonna flush when you stand up, and sharing those kind of options with the, the person with the dementia or their caregiver. So I think those are definitely things worth mentioning. And as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we had Susie Stark a couple months back, and she had that research that showed that offering them several options was always good. And somewhere, I don't know if it was her research or someone else's, that talked about sometimes we underestimate the family's ability to find the resources for things that are going to be very helpful for them. So giving them options.
I think as OTs, we really need to know about other funding sources like the VA or, you know, through DSHS, et cetera, to be able to give those resources to our patients.
Yeah, the VA has some awesome resources, and really can pretty much, they have specific grants, and they have, I know here in Florida, our VA has a team of therapists that'll go out and just make the home modification recommendations and make sure everything gets done, and go back and follow up on it. I see somebody asked a question about modifying glare on the wood floor, and I think the use of draperies and curtains, and especially like sheer curtains, those kind of things can decrease the glare on wood floors, and just how the lighting is moved and positioned also. Were there any other questions?
I think that it's a great tool personally for, you talk just about, like for clinical utility. It's a great way to sort of structure your way that you're looking at the home, and then it leads you naturally to being able to make comments and recommendations and figure out which areas have the most hazards or are most problematic. I think it looks like a great tool.
Thank you.
I really like how easy it will be to administer in home health.
Good, thank you. And I'm open to hear other kind of comments too that aren't necessarily as positive, because that helps to make things better. So don't, if you're listening in, don't feel shy about making comments that aren't as positive either. I won't take it personally. That's kind of what needs to happen to have a good tool that's strong and will work going forward. Oh, for whoever wanted my YouTube link and couldn't get the video, if you want to email me when we send out my email tomorrow, I'll be glad to send you some of the links. Oh, I like the comment about glass panels on the kitchen cabinets. Yeah, I could definitely see that as, you can find out what's in what cabinet. I never actually made that recommendation, but I always learn new things when I do this too. Get ideas from everybody else.
I worked with a family once that they were saying that the parent who's living with them was sort of going around and sort of ruffling through, everybody's papers, their paperwork. And so we talked about having to put certain most important papers in locked boxes, if you will, to protect the family's possessions.
Wow, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it is. And then I've also heard, in terms of the person that likes to, go around and ruffling the papers, having a spot where they have a pile of papers that they can ruffle through.
Right. Absolutely.
So locking up what you don't want them to get into, but at the same time giving them that opportunity to still participate in what they find meaningful at that stage.
Yeah, I take care of my aunt with dementia. I take care of her every now and again. And one thing I always try to do is have something for her to do. And like little activity stations, I think would be nice for people with dementia. With her, I took her outside and we hung up the laundry, and then she spent probably an hour rearranging it on the clothesline.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with the tailored activity program.
I'm not.
It's Laura Gitlin, who's not an OT, but she's worked with Kathy Parasol, I don't know if anybody knows her, and with some of the therapists from Johns Hopkins and Thomas Jefferson. And then we've done it here with the VA in Gainesville. And it's like an 8-session home intervention for persons with dementia, and part of it's an interest checklist and 3 different activity prescriptions that are set up, where it could be like the laundry example.
Yeah, that would make it so much easier because it keeps anxiety levels down for both the person with dementia and the caregiver.
Right. And the idea is then that it also helps to decrease some of those, it's like a non-pharmacological intervention for some of those neuropsychiatric behaviors that we see in dementia people.
So who's that? The Taylor Activity Program? Can you say that again?
Tailored Activity Program. And if you Googled it, you'd probably get some things from some work by Laura Gitlin or Kathy Parasol. They were going to do like an online, where you could get certified in administering the tailored activity program. But it was supposed to come out last spring, but I don't know if it has or not.
Thank you very much about that.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, I want to thank you all for tuning in since this was kind of a last minute, getting all the information out. I just really am impressed with the turnout, and then I see that there were like 34, 35 people here at one time. It's exciting to share something that I get passionate about it. I like to be able to share that. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank you very much.
together.
Thank you.
Can
My
I ask
pleasure.
a question of everyone? Can I ask a question?
Oh, definitely.
I'm an occupational therapist, of course, but I just took a job as a life plan coordinator at a at-home program, which is it's I'm not acting as an OT. I'm actually coordinating a program that is through a CCRC, a continuous care retirement community. Has anyone heard of anything like that?
No.
We have some two continuous care. Well, being in Florida, there's a lot of continuous care communities around here.
This is an at-home program specifically, where they're buying into the program, and we're sending out a care partner or a care coordinator, and we're going to be taking them from their own homes, all the way from being independent through death eventually.
Wow. So how do you what kind of supports do you provide?
Prevention and wellness. We go in 4 times a year. I just started this job 2 weeks ago. We'll be going in, and our phone is ringing off the hook. People wanting to come to the seminar and buy into the program. But I'll be helping advocate for the families that want to stay in their own homes instead of going into the community.
Wow.
If you look online, who we are modeling after is Kendall at Home, Kendal at Home, and it's in Ohio.
Oh. Ohio seems to be a theme today.
I was just wondering if anyone had heard of programs like this.
I haven't, but it sounds very interesting.
I'm hoping it's the missing link.
Yeah.
There's a lot of initiatives, of course, all over the world and all over the country for aging in place and for, sort of age-friendly neighborhoods and, neighborhoods and neighbors providing support for one another and sort of trading and bartering services. There's all, like really old school neighborhoods versus sort of more designed neighborhoods for aging and communities. But there's so much. You just start Googling the topic, and so many things pop up in terms of this trend. It's what a great opportunity, right, for you?
Yeah.
Thrilled. So if you all have any feedback for me, I'd appreciate it. Again, I'm on this list, so I've only been doing it 2 weeks, but maybe I'm naive, but I think it's really going to be an asset, and our phone's ringing off the hook.
I bet. Who's funding this? Can you guys see my screen? I put the Kindle on up there.
Yeah, we can see it.
You have to buy in. It's for people who have means, but I'm hoping that it trickles down. Some of the concepts we learn with this program will trickle down to every man. But it's more for our affluent people who buy in.
Nice.
It almost sounds like a variation of the village, like Beacon Hill Village, but with more professional services. Yes.
I really am not familiar with it. This is people staying in their own homes wherever their own homes are, and we will actually follow them with a life plan coordination wherever they travel in the United States.
Wow.
Wow, that's great.
How much does it cost to buy in?
I'm not. That's not my part.
I just
It's
wondered.
expensive.
That's wonderful.
What is the name of the program? What's
It's
the name of your program?
Long-term care insurance.
exactly.
Yeah, I know. My husband and I just bought long-term care insurance not too long ago, and we looked for something specifically that that provided some kind of geriatric care management or life care plan management and at-home services.
Wow.
Oh, good. I hope they do that for you.
Is this just in Ohio?
No, apparently there are about 30 of them around the country, and I'm in New Orleans, or a suburb of New Orleans, and again, we just started ours. We haven't even done our first seminar.
Wow.
What's the name of the program?
Christwood at Home.
Right.
Pricewood?
CHRISTWOOD at Home. It's brand new. You're not going to find much about it on the internet.
So it's not Kendall at Home.
It's based off of Kindle at Home. They're actually kind of selling their idea, and they're offering a consultation around the country, and my employer bought into it to use it as a model.
Oh.
This is something we really need.
Yeah. So someone asked, "Is this a franchise?"
I didn't know. No, not that I'm aware of.
And did you say something about Council on Aging?
No, I didn't. I did not.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I heard you say you were working through your local Council on Aging. They were part of the sponsorship.
Oh, it's Krista. We have this in the in Seattle area.
Okay.
But I didn't know they did anything in the home. They definitely have the continuum of care facility based.
Right. And we have a facility base, but we're venturing into, since people want to stay in their own homes, we're offering it in their own home. So, and I think what's going to happen is that hopefully we're going to be able to keep these people well and their quality of life high. And then when that goes, they'll let go instead of getting caught in the medical nightmare.
How is this different from like Home Instead or some of those other programs?
You have to buy into this. This is like a retirement community, only you're staying in your own home. It's just a lot less expensive than buying into a retirement community.
Oh.
So when they buy in, then they get home care services?
If they need it, when they need it, they buy in independent. With these continuous care communities, you have to be independent when you move in. Now, when that changes, they have to provide you support. But you buy in while you're still independent.
And what's your job title again?
I'm the life plan coordinator for the last 2 weeks.
You're gonna have to keep us updated how it goes.
We're just starting our seminars. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to start our seminars to advertise it.
So what other services can the client get besides home care and your care planning? Can they get nutritional advice and things like that?
Absolutely. And we encourage them to join a fitness center, or I'll be able to monitor them. Since I'm an OT and I have that background, I'll be able to monitor them and their wellness, be able to look at some safety hazards or some modifications they might need in their home. I have the ECHM. I just got that through the University of Southern California online.
What is that?
The executive certificate in home modifications.
Oh.
That's a good one.
But when you buy in, do you get an investment if the physical structure of your home has to be modified in order for you to stay in it?
No, but I could recommend that you make those changes. So you wouldn't be blindsided by them. You would have to make your own changes. Unless, of course, you were a veteran, and then I would certainly coach you to get your veterans benefits.
Could you help them as far as finding financing, or doesn't that cover what you do, or they're too well off to need it?
I don't know. I don't know that they're too well off to need it. I would advocate wherever I could.
I'm curious, how did you hear about this position?
I started a little business on the side because I wanted to work in, the whole reason I've gotten these certifications is because I wanted to help people stay home, and I wanted to work in prevention. But it seems like nobody's interested in prevention. They want to deal with home modifications after they had major insults. And I've been an OT for 35 years. I'm really tired of working with people after the fact. I want to help them prevent. So I got my certifications, but I knew a girl who worked at this community, this continuous community, and she told me they were thinking about doing it. So I've just kept in contact with her, and when they finally decided to do it, I applied for the job.
That's great. Who's speaking? What's your name?
Patty Zebrick, Patricia Zebrick.
Thank you.
You're going to have to keep us updated on how it goes and what you're finding out.
I'd love to.
Because it sounds so interesting.
So no one else has heard of that before. It is really new. Is that right?
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
I've never heard of it either.
The villages that you buy into, I think there's 27 around the country. It's all neighbor-to-neighbor assistance, actually, and some coordination and vetting of the services that are available. But it doesn't offer what you're talking about, which is what I really like with the planning and coordination and resources.
Right.
It's good.
Yeah,
I'm very grateful.
So I'm curious about this certification. Is it well respected, well known? I've never heard of it before.
The executive certificate in home modification is through the University of Southern California in Davis. And any of the home mod courses I had gone to, they always talked about the ECHM or the SCEM through AOTA, but that was so specific to OT, I wanted to venture out and work with, architects and other professionals, not just OT.
That's very well known. The University of Southern California's program is the best I've taken, and I think a lot of people would agree. I've taken almost everything I could find on home mods, and that one by far was just excellent. You learn a lot. They give you homework. Yeah. It takes some time.
Just correct me if I'm wrong from anybody that's taken the CAPS program, but from what I understand, there's a day of marketing and there's a day of business, but very little on the home mods themselves. Whereas the Southern California has a lot on home mods.
Oh, yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Can you do that online, that program, or do you have to go be?
Yes, it's five separate classes.
And it's all online.
All online.
Yeah, the USC course. Wow.
Thanks for all the good information.
Thanks for your time.
Thank
And
you,
thank
Linda.
you all.
And then just real quick, someone had sent me a link for it's an Irish universal design for people with dementia, and I'll send that out as well. It's it's a really interesting. It's the National Disability Authority Universal Design Guidelines for Dementia-Friendly Dwellings. And I'll send the link out to this because I haven't had a whole lot of time to look at it. I just got this probably about 5 o'clock today. But it's really interesting. It shows different things and different designs for different spaces based on, 1-story house, 2-story house. It's just something I think everybody would be interested in, especially if you're working with people with dementia or people with brain injuries, since there's so many similarities, in my opinion, although I haven't worked a lot with people with dementia, just my aunt. But people with brain injuries are very similar. But I want to say thank you it looks like it's time to wrap up. Thank you all for coming and joining us tonight. So again, sorry about the late notice. And please keep us updated, Patricia, as far as how things are going with you and when interesting things come up, because I'm sure you're going to have a lot of interesting things come up. And Linda Struckmeyer, this was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your research.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. I enjoyed sharing it.
Yeah, keep us updated too as you go along, because it sounds like you're still doing things with it. And I'd be interested to see how it evolves. And if you send me a copy, and again, I'll look, I only saw the PowerPoint, but if you send me a copy of the evaluation itself, I'll just put it on email and send that out as well.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you. This was really valuable to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome.